Many women become inexplicably irritable in the days leading up to their period. They don't want to talk, don't want to socialize, and are like walking human time bombs, ready to explode at the slightest provocation. Yesterday was a day filled with irritability, but today has turned into a day of sadness. Even though nothing particularly upsetting has happened, she still feels unusually down. What's the point of living? Even the smallest things can make her unbearably sad. If a cat can only eat cat food its whole life, what's the point of living? In addition, she can't help but overthink, dwelling on past unhappy events and imagining things that might happen in the future. The more she thinks, the more her head aches, and she feels overwhelmed with anxiety. But after a few days, once her period starts, her mood immediately brightens, and everything suddenly makes sense again. Life is truly wonderful. It would be even better if there were no menstrual cramps. Why do women experience these symptoms? Actually, all of these manifestations are medically known as premenstrual syndrome. In addition to causing emotional instability, changes in appetite, weight gain, nausea, constipation, and swelling, it can also lead to abdominal pain, back pain, lower back pain, headaches, and breast pain. Premenstrual syndrome symptoms usually appear in the luteal phase before menstruation and diminish or disappear with the onset of menstruation. However, some women may also experience these symptoms during ovulation in the early luteal phase. Why does premenstrual syndrome cause emotional instability? To answer that, we have to start with the corpus luteum. When a woman goes through her previous menstrual period, her body realizes that another attempt at conception has failed, so it starts preparing early for the next ovulation by secreting hormones to prompt the ovaries to begin a new cycle of ovulation. Such a great opportunity attracts several small egg cells. Each small egg cell is surrounded by a layer of tiny cells that transmit information and nutrients to it, known as granulosa cells, as well as follicular membrane cells that form a protective shell. Together, they encircle the egg cell like stars around the moon, forming tiny follicles, each hoping to be chosen as the lucky one to be released. The surrounding cells that provide nutrients to the egg cell also secrete large amounts of estrogen, increasing your desire to have intercourse so that the egg cell you release with your own hands won't go unnoticed. As the follicle that matures first is chosen as the lucky one and releases its egg cell, the others are dismissed. The granulosa cells and theca cells that have fulfilled their mission also follow through to the end, transforming into the corpus luteum. They continue to secrete large amounts of estrogen and additionally produce a hormone called progesterone. These two hormones work together to help the uterus prepare the new home. Do you want blue or pink? Although these cells have postponed their retirement by turning into the corpus luteum, they still hope every day that a fertilized egg will quickly move in. That way, the placenta can develop to take over their job and continue secreting these hormones. But after waiting for a long time, the corpus luteum still hasn't received any notice to retire. So, after doing the math, it realizes there's no pregnancy and just gives up and degenerates. At this point, due to the degeneration of the corpus luteum, estrogen and progesterone levels also drop sharply. Hey! Without the help of these hormones, the thickened endometrium of the uterus can't be maintained, so it sheds and bleeds, which is what forms menstruation. Although this process seems to only affect the uterus, in reality, estrogen and progesterone, these two hormones, can enter the bloodstream, travel throughout the entire body, and produce even broader effects. The child hasn't even arrived yet. As the corpus luteum forms, the many estrogens and progestogens it secretes go on to promote the growth and development of the mammary glands, just in case the child is born hungry. That's why women often feel breast tenderness before their period. At the same time, these estrogens can also cause the body to retain water, leading to edema, and once it starts, the swelling can last for several days. However, in the brain, estrogen can promote the production of a substance called serotonin, which helps regulate your mood. But in the later phase, when the corpus luteum breaks down and hormone levels suddenly drop, serotonin can also be affected, making you irritable, prone to anger, suffer from insomnia, and have trouble concentrating, among other symptoms. This series of symptoms caused by hormonal fluctuations is known as premenstrual syndrome, PMS. Although doctors have speculated through various experiments and observations that these conditions are likely related to hormones, as well as changes in serotonin and other neuro-related substances, there are still many questions about the exact relationship between them and how these effects are produced. In addition, some studies have found that during the luteal phase, if a woman's blood calcium and vitamin D levels decrease, it can cause or worsen the symptoms of premenstrual syndrome. If a person is usually prone to negative emotions such as anxiety anxiety, depression, or anger, their risk of experiencing premenstrual syndrome is often higher as well. People who are under a lot of stress have nearly 3 times the risk of developing premenstrual syndrome compared to those with little stress. In addition, the intake of nicotine, alcohol, and caffeine, as well as the consumption of high-calorie, high-fat, high-sugar, and high-salt foods and binge eating can also increase the risk of premenstrual syndrome or worsen its symptoms. So, for women with mild symptoms, the first thing to do is to relax, ensure you get enough sleep, avoid too much stress, and don't be overly anxious. Believe in yourself. You are already doing great. In daily life, try to avoid smoking and drinking alcohol, and also cut back on coffee. When it comes to your diet, eat more vegetables and whole grains. Additionally, you can also supplement with calcium and vitamin D, or eat foods that contain these 2 nutrients, which may help alleviate the symptoms of premenstrual syndrome. Finally, make sure to get a moderate amount of exercise every day because research shows that exercise is one of the effective interventions for relieving premenstrual syndrome symptoms. For women with more severe symptoms, it's also advisable to visit the hospital in a timely manner and seek improvement through medication. I'm Hua Xiaolu. My dream is to become a well-read, emotionally stable flower enthusiast.